There is no single definition for recession. In the United States, recession is defined as a significant decline in economic activity spread across the market lasting more than a few months. Normally visible in real gross domestic product (GDP), real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. Whereas in the United Kingdom, it is defined as a negative economic growth for two consecutive quarters. Whatever may be the definition, in general, recession occurs when there is a general decline in the economic activity. With the current situations happening around the globe, it is needless to say that we are in a global economic recession. But what are the causes of it and how long can this have an impact on everyday life? Without any further delay, let's start today's episode. Hello aspiring Sarva Gyanis. Welcome to my channel. This video explains about the economic crisis happening around the world in 2020. How did this begin and what are the consequences of it? 2019 global economic slowdown. Even though the emergence of the current pandemic has crashed the global markets, this economic slowdown started in 2019 itself. International Monetary Fund (IMF) reported in 2019 that the world economy was going through a synchronized slowdown, which entered into its slowest pace since the great financial crisis of 2007-2008. Global growth was believed to have peaked in 2017 when the world's total industrial output began to start a sustained decline in early 2018. The IMF blamed heightened trade and geopolitical tensions as the main reason for the slowdown, citing Brexit and the China-United States trade war as primary reasons for slowdown in 2019. In April 2019, the US yield curve inverted, which sparked fears of a 2020 recession across the world. The inverted yield curve and the trade war fears prompted a sell-off in global stock markets during March 2019, which prompted more fears that a recession was imminent. Rising debt levels in the European Union and the United States had always been a concern for economists. Russia-Saudi Arabia oil price war. As the travel industry has gone down due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the demand for crude oil has been significantly impacted, causing its price to fall. As the negotiations between Saudi Arabia and Russia to cut down production and keep the prices normal failed, Saudi Arabia announced that it would increase production of crude oil and sell it at a discount price for its customers in Asia, the United States, and Europe. The oil prices, which were already 30% lower since the beginning of the year, further dropped by another 30%, which didn't have a positive impact on the already slowing economy. International protests. Riots and protests always have a negative impact on the economy by reducing consumer confidence in buying products, straining local businesses, and destroying property and public infrastructure. A number of small businesses already suffering from the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic were harmed by vandalism, property destruction, and looting. In addition, the curfews instated by the local governments due to these protests has restricted access to the essential workers, lowering the economic output. Large-scale property damage stemming from the protests has led to increased insurance claims, bankruptcies, and curbed economic activity among small businesses and state governments. Insurance claims arising from property damage suffered in rioting is still being assessed, but is thought to be significant, perhaps record-breaking. Natural disasters. At just the halfway through 2020, the world has experienced many disasters already this year. Wildfires in Australia, India, the United States, and parts of Europe, storms and floods in parts of South America, Indian subcontinent, East Africa, earthquakes in Turkey, Iran, Caribbean, Russia, and New Zealand have all killed many people and damaged property worth billions. When the natural disasters strike, the economy is suffered directly through the expenses of renovating the damaged property and the equipment, as well as indirect expenses from lost revenue. COVID-19 pandemic. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which was first identified in Wuhan, China in December 2019, has led to severe global economic disruption. Many sporting, religious, political, and cultural events have been postponed or cancelled due to this pandemic. Widespread shortage of supplies occurred due to the panic shopping in the beginning of lockdown period. Almost all the schools, colleges, and universities across the world are closed to control the spread of this pandemic. Many governments have advised or restricted against all non-essential travel to and fro from many countries, impacting the tourism, airline, and cruise industries. This pandemic, which affected nearly every major industry negatively, was the main reason for the stock market crash beginning from Feb 20th of this year. Stay-at-home orders proved to be effective in controlling the spread of the virus, but it negatively impacted the economy, especially for the businesses that provide in-person services, including retail stores, restaurants and hotels, entertainment venues and museums, medical offices, and beauty salons and spas. The business is not only impacted by the government restrictions, but also due to the mindset of the customers, who do not want to risk by using their services during the pandemic. In Africa, the current pandemic was the reason for its first recession in 25 years by negatively impacting diamond mining and trade, uranium mining, tourism and hospitality industries. Whereas in Americas, the economic activity is adversely affected because of the losses incurred in auto manufacturers and part suppliers, oil price collapse, tourism, restaurants, airlines, retail, health services, education, leisure and hospitality sectors. Australia, which was recovering from the losses incurred through the bushfires in the beginning of the year, is also on the verge of its worst economic meltdown. Losses incurred in the tourism, manufacturing sectors forced job layoffs, which increased the unemployment over there. Most of the developing countries in Asia export raw materials to other manufacturing companies throughout the world. But with the decrease in demand, the economy in those countries is also drastically affected. With the sudden decline in demand for tourism, garments, raw materials, crude oil, almost all the countries in Asia are facing their worst economy in recent times. Things aren't very different in European nations, where the first strict lockdowns were observed. The lack of economic activity during the pandemic affected almost all the industries negatively in Europe. With still no cure or vaccine for the COVID-19 virus, even though the government slowly removed the restrictions and lockdowns, people are still hesitant to use the products and services. This current economic recession might continue for few more months until people believe that they are safe from the virus. And now, the fact of the day. The Great Depression that began in 1929 and spread for almost 10 years until late 1930s is considered as the worst financial and economic disaster of the industrialized world. Between 1929 and 1932, worldwide gross domestic product (GDP) fell by an estimated 15%. By comparison, worldwide GDP fell by less than 1% from 2008 to 2009 during the Great Recession.